Om Namo Narayanaya, welcome back. Today we are reading the prayer at the feet of Sri Sri Kali by Sri Vimalananda Swami. I found this prayer online preceding the Hindu Kali, or the Kala Stotra by Mahakala, and I thought it was such a great thing just on its own, glancing over it. So I decided to make a video of it, and then the next video will be the hymn. But I think both of them stand up individually on their own. Prayer at the feet of Sri Sri Kali. May the Mahadevi, who is called Kali, because she is without beginning or end, whose body is imagined to be blue of color, because like the blue sky, she pervades the world, and because she is Siddhgana, Sarvata Gunamayi, who is imagined to be black, because she is colorless and above the colored gunas, whose hair is disheveled, because though herself changeless, she binds infinite numbers of jivas by bonds of Maya, symbolized by her disheveled hair, and because she makes liberated Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshvara, who are Kesha, who is imagined as having the sun, moon, and fire as her three eyes, because as the Vrad, the witness of the world past, present, and future, she sees everything. Who is pictured as wearing the dead bodies of two boys as her ear ornaments, because as said in Agama and Nigama, the childlike and unperturbed Sadhaka is very dear to her. Who, being the sole creatrix, preserver, and destructress of infinite millions of worlds, has on her body the mark of the yoni, signifying creation, full and high breasts, denoting preservation, and a terrible visage, signifying the withdrawal of all things, who is said to have large teeth and a lolling tongue, and to hold in her hand a cup made of human skull, because the Sinmayi Mahadevi drinks the wine of delusion arising from the tamas gunas of her sadhaka, by means of sattva, pradhana, raja guna, who is pictured as wearing a garland of severed heads, because she is Sabda Brahman, and the heads are the 50 letters, whose upper and lower right hands are seen to be making the Abhya and Vara mudras, because she both destroys the dangers and grants the desires of Sakama Sadhakas, whose upper left hand is depicted as wielding a sword, because she severs the bonds of illusion for the Nishkama Sadhaka, whose lower left hand is seen to be holding a human head, because she grants him Tattva Jnana, who is called space-clad, because being Brahma, she is free from the covering of Maya and unconcerned, who is pictured as having a waist chain of human heads, because hands are the principal instrument of karma, and at the close of a kalpa, all jivas with their karmas are merged in the avidya sakti of Mahamaya, who is seen standing on the breast of corpse-like Shiva, because the supreme state in Svarupavastha, or Mahadevi, is nirguna and changeless, who is seen in Viparita Maithuna with Mahakala, because at the beginning of a kalpa she is ever blissful, and being united with Shiva feels pleasure in the work of creation, which she effects by bringing the changeless Parashiva under her dominion, who is again said to live in the cremation ground, because when at the end of a kalpa all things in the universe from Brahma to a blade of grass are dissolved in Mahakala, she is in and one with the Mahakala, who may be thus compared to a cremation ground, and because at the death of jivas she exists as the individual Jivatma in the burning ground, whose yantra for worship is composed of a circle symbolizing Maya, an 8-petaled lotus denoting the eightfold Prakriti, 3 pentagons representing the 15 avayavas, and a bindu denoting Shiva Shakti, because she is, as Paramatma, in the gross and subtle bodies, consisting of the 3 gunas and 24 tattvas, whose Bija Krim, the queen of mantras, is pure sattva guna and consciousness, and grants both enjoyment and liberation, who is worshipped as Dakshina because she alone grants the full fruits of all forms of Apasana and Yajna. May she, this Mahadevi, who is Sakshadananda Darupini, and forgiveness itself, pardon all offenses committed by me in the explanation of this her hymn. Sambhu, with his 5 mouths, is unable to relate thy qualities. Pardon all my childishness. Be propitious. Guard my life, guard my repute, and guard my wife, sons, and wealth, and at death grant me liberation. O Mother of the world, Kali, obeisance. Thus ends the prayer at the feet of Sri Sri Kali, also known as the prayer at the feet of Sri Sri Kalika, but I figured most of you, or many of you looking for her, would be Googling Kali, not Kalika. So I slightly modified it. So my apologies to Sanskrit and Sanskrit scholars and the power of that wonderful language. So there was a lot of Sanskrit in this. That was my little segue. Maybe there's words in this poem that you did not know, that did not have an English translation, because I probably would have read it. I'm going to challenge you to find this prayer. It is online, it's easy to find, and there's a link down below. And look up the words. Expand your vocabulary. I often rant on this channel about translation, and how we translate words into things, and the translation leaves us with an impression that may not actually be correct. For example, and this is a non-religious translation, but it's a good example. If you know the history of the Soviet Union and Russia, you will know Ivan the Terrible. Now here's the thing. His Russian name, and I used to speak a little Russian, doesn't actually mean terrible, as in like terrible like Kali. It's not evil, mean, and horrible. He's not like Elizabeth Bathory of Hungary. He was actually very intimidating and struck fear in everybody due to his power and his influence. But he actually wasn't a mean, horrible, nasty person. People just responded to him like, "Oh my God, yes, master, yes, whatever you say," you know. And he would grant good things, and he did many good things, but it was this fear in the presence of somebody who could be bad, but could be good, and it's like a fear and trembling. And if you look at the Russian name, that's what it translates as. But to say Ivan, the king who inspires fear and trembling, just doesn't really roll off the tongue so well. So one of the translations of this word is terrible, but it absolutely is not at all correct. It is not remotely correct, but it sounds better. But now we always think of, oh, Ivan the Terrible, but really nobody knows about him and knows that that's really not correct. So this word has completely obliterated history, accurate history. And so I find this a lot on this channel, and I see a word and it's in some holy scripture, and I'm like, yeah, I just think over time the definition is going to change because it's the wrong word. Heaven comes up a lot in the scriptures, in the modern interpretations. You're going to do something and go to heaven. Well, that's a very Christian word. It comes out of Christianity. It may come out of Judaism, but it definitely comes out of Christianity. And we have come to think of heaven in a very particular way. I do understand that there is a heaven in Islam, but I don't know if it uses the same word. And I don't know if it looks the same as the Christian heaven. So I'm just going to use the Christian example right now. But we picture heaven in a certain way. So if I say to you in this scripture, you worship Kali and go to heaven, you're probably going to think of that biblical heaven. The Hindu heaven, though, isn't anything like that. And there may not even be a Hindu heaven. I've seen arguments that yes, there is, but it's completely different. But we're using a word that has such a standard meaning that it's hard to not see that meaning. But you should get what I'm saying, and you should get the importance of why these Hindu words are here, and why they're important to kind of keep them here, or at least until we can find a definition of them that fits, versus just throwing some word in here that may or may not be right. For example, there is actually karma is here, and I read it, and the line is, because hands are the principal instrument of karma. There's actually a translation here that says hands are the principal instrument of work. And if I said work, you would be thinking 9 to 5. You wouldn't be thinking karma, which is beyond just work. So it's really important to get these words right. And I'm going to challenge you, as I already said, I'm going to challenge you to Google these words, to go through here and look them up, and to find out what they mean. There's another reason for doing that, and that's because when you look up karma, you're going to look up the definition, go for the authentic traditional definition, and you're going to suddenly learn so much. And that's just going to open your worldview up. Oh wow, I didn't realize karma was like that. I thought karma was very different. Just a few words are going to give you so much to Hinduism, and so much that you probably don't even realize that you may not even have right. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I'm encouraging you to do your homework and to study. But I think it'll be worth it, because I think it'll just expand your worldview. So that being said, this was a lovely little prayer that really described Kali in depth. Those who know Kali probably knew so much of this already. It was great because it paints not just the physical attributes of Kali, but also, I want to say contradiction, but it shows her two sides. She's the destroyer. She's also someone who preserves, and those things go hand in hand. And this will be my last comment. And this is one of the things I really like about Hinduism. You have the gods, and black and white goes together. Good and evil goes together. The male and the female go together. We don't have a God who is just good, just a perfect God who is always perfect. Or we don't have a God who is just evil, and that's it. It's just pure evil. No, we have both. And each God symbolizes both. It's an idea that a lot of people who come to Hinduism don't realize. They think, oh, well, Vishnu is just this perfect God, or Shiva and Ganesha are just perfect beings. And then there's like maybe evil gods, maybe Kali or Durga are like evil or something. That's not it at all. This whole concept of good and evil, yes, of course there's evil and there's good, but we don't view it the same. You view them, you can't have one without the other. And if you read the story of Krishna, which we've touched on a little bit on this channel when reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will see that sometimes he's not purely good. He's not perfect. He's not like a Jesus character. But that's what makes this, and that's part of the Hindu worldview is the opposites coming together and being as one. So keep that in mind when you're reading this. Kali is just a perfect example, because so many of us just see her as kind of a brutal character, but really she offers so much more. Alright, thoughts, comments, whatever, please, down below. Would love anything you have to say. Feel free to also private message me. If you want to say something in private to me, you can lambast, you can do whatever. These thoughts at the end of this are simply to, promote thoughts of yours and thinking, and just, it's very off the cuff. I don't say this too much, but if you're interested in supporting the channel, you'll see some websites down below of stuff that I do, and feel free to buy something of mine. And yeah, that being said, thank you for watching. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.